The geopolitical landscape of the Middle East has reached a critical turning point. Welcome to this deep dive investigation into the escalating conflict between the United States and Iran. As of March 2026, the situation has moved beyond proxy skirmishes into a full-scale direct confrontation that threatens global stability. To understand how we got here, we must look at the convergence of military strikes, nuclear deadlocks, and shifting regional alliances. Today, we analyze the details of Operation Epic Fury, the role of the Gulf states, and the massive economic ripple effects felt in Europe and beyond. The roots of this crisis trace back to the collapse of the 2015 nuclear agreement and the subsequent maximum pressure campaign. By 2024, the shadow war had ended. Direct exchanges between Israel and Iran became the new, dangerous norm. The return of the Trump administration in 2025 signaled a reinstatement of extreme economic sanctions coupled with a final ultimatum for nuclear dismantling. A two-month deadline set in early 2025 passed without a resolution, pushing both nations to the brink of open warfare. In June 2025, the International Atomic Energy Agency declared Iran in violation of its non-proliferation obligations after discovering a secret enrichment site. This led to the first direct US interventions, targeting nuclear sites in Fordo and Natanz to halt uranium enrichment. Iran's retaliation against US forces in Qatar forced a fragile ceasefire, but the underlying tensions only continued to simmer. In February 2026, the relative calm shattered with the launch of Operation Epic Fury, a massive joint US-Israeli air campaign. The operation aimed to decapitate Iran's leadership and dismantle its most sensitive military and nuclear infrastructure. Reports soon emerged that the strikes had been successful in their ultimate objective. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was dead. His death created a sudden leadership vacuum, plunging the Iranian regime into chaos and sparking fears of prolonged instability. The Gulf Cooperation Council states, including Saudi Arabia and the UAE, found themselves in an impossible position. Initially, these states sought a delicate balance, assuring Tehran they would not allow their territory to be used for offensive strikes. Despite their neutrality, Iran launched retaliatory strikes directly at its neighbors, hitting targets in Riyadh, Dubai, and Doha. The most critical threat remains the Strait of Hormuz, through which approximately 20% of the world's oil supply flows daily. Iran's threat to close this choke point has sent shockwaves through global energy markets, with oil prices spiking to record levels. For Europe, the crisis is particularly acute. The continent's reliance on imported LNG and oil makes it highly vulnerable to these disruptions. The E3 nations, France, Germany, and the UK, have called for maximum restraint, fearing the heavy repercussions of a wider regional war. While avoiding direct military participation, Europe has implemented its most extensive sanctions yet to curb Iran's regional influence. Iran's axis of resistance, a network of proxy militias across Yemen, Lebanon, and Iraq, remains a major wildcard. Houthi rebels in Yemen have resumed attacks on international shipping, further straining global supply chains and maritime security. Although their central leadership is weakened, these groups continue to operate autonomously, launching strikes against Israeli and Western assets. The economic indicators are stark. Jobless claims are rising in the West, and treasury yields are fluctuating as investors seek safety. Multinational corporations and fintech sectors are re-evaluating their footprints in the region as the risk of total war looms. Commodity forecasts suggest that gold and silver will remain the primary hedges for investors as the conflict enters its next phase. Technological superiority, particularly in AI-driven warfare and stealth capabilities, has defined the early victories of Operation Epic Fury. The use of F-35s and autonomous drone swarms allowed for precision strikes with minimal civilian casualties, according to US command. However, the humanitarian cost cannot be ignored. Millions in Iran and surrounding nations face an uncertain future as infrastructure crumbles. Global perspectives remain divided. While many Western nations support the aim of regime change, others fear a permanent destabilization of the global order. Asian markets, heavily dependent on Middle Eastern energy, are watching the Strait of Hormuz with unprecedented anxiety. The ultimate question remains: how much of Iran's nuclear capability was actually destroyed, and could a secret program still exist? Intelligence agencies are working around the clock to verify the damage using the latest in satellite and AI surveillance technology. In the wake of the strikes, we are seeing a dramatic realignment as Gulf leaders are pushed closer to the US-Israeli security umbrella. To put this in perspective, this is the most direct intervention since the 1979 revolution, marking a complete departure from decades of containment. The cost of this conflict, both in human lives and economic output, is estimated to reach trillions of dollars if it continues. Global shipping costs have already tripled, adding significant inflationary pressure to every sector of the world economy. Now, let's turn to a deeper strategic analysis of what the way forward looks like for the international community. In one scenario, the leadership vacuum in Iran leads to a new, more moderate government willing to negotiate a lasting peace. In the more pessimistic scenario, a hardline faction seizes control, leading to a desperate total war that engulfs the entire region. For investors, the risks are clear: extreme volatility in energy, the potential for a global recession, and the fragility of supply chains. This conflict may accelerate the global transition to renewable energy as nations seek to reduce their dependence on Middle Eastern oil. Beyond the physical battlefield, cyber warfare poses a constant threat to critical infrastructure in the West and the Gulf alike. Public opinion across the globe is deeply divided, with many calling for an immediate end to the strikes to prevent a humanitarian disaster. The roles of China and Russia are pivotal. Their diplomatic and economic support for Tehran could prolong the conflict indefinitely. At the United Nations, gridlock continues as veto-wielding members remain at odds over the legitimacy of Operation Epic Fury. To summarize the strategic picture, the nuclear threat is diminished but not gone. The leadership is in flux, and the global economy is at a tipping point. Looking ahead to 2027, the path we choose today will determine whether the Middle East enters an era of peace or a century of shadow. Media reports from around the world continue to provide conflicting data on the extent of the damage and the regime's resilience. One of the most significant takeaways is the role of AI in this conflict, from autonomous drones to predictive strategic modeling. AI-driven simulations have allowed military commanders to predict Iranian moves with 80% accuracy, according to some reports. This has sparked a global ethical debate on the future of warfare and the removal of human judgment from the kill chain. Major global organizations and secret societies are also under the spotlight, as many wonder about their influence on these geopolitical shifts. Conspiracy theories and investigative reports suggest that the timing of these events may be linked to a broader, long-term global agenda. Space technology has also played a crucial role, with satellite arrays providing real-time data for every strike in Operation Epic Fury. In conclusion, the situation between the United States and Iran is no longer just a regional dispute. It is a global crisis with massive implications. The economic warning lights are flashing red. If the Strait of Hormuz is closed, we could face a depression unlike any in recent history. Yet, human resilience continues. People around the world are finding ways to adapt and support those caught in the crossfire. It is more important than ever to stay informed through diverse factual and analytical sources as this situation continues to evolve. From the skies of Tehran to the boardrooms of New York, the world is watching, waiting for the next move in this high-stakes game. The way forward requires a balance of strength and diplomacy to ensure that this conflict does not become a permanent scar on our world. As a final recommendation, watch the pharma, banking, and energy sectors closely, as they will be the most impacted by the unfolding events. History will judge the actions of 2026. This has been a deep dive investigation into the current situation between the US and Iran. Thank you for watching this strategic briefing. Stay safe, stay informed, and we will see you in the next analysis.